Ma'am, I'm just a janitor. You're asking the wrong person. Victoria Sterling, worth $400 million, stood in the empty corporate hallway at midnight, tears streaming down her designer makeup. The woman who owned half the city's real estate was now begging a night shift janitor to marry her for one day. Please, Marcus. It's not about money. It's about saving a little girl's life. Marcus Johnson, a single father working 3 jobs, held his mop tighter. He had no idea that this bizarre midnight encounter would change everything he thought he knew about love, sacrifice, and what it truly means to be wealthy. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus Johnson pushed his cleaning cart down the 47th floor of Sterling Enterprises. It was 11:47 p.m., and the towering skyscraper was empty except for the security guards and him. At 34, Marcus had grown accustomed to the solitude of night shift janitorial work. It paid better than day shifts, and most importantly, it allowed him to be home with his 8-year-old daughter Emma during the day. Emma was everything to Marcus. After his wife Sarah died in a car accident 3 years ago, Emma became his entire world. Every decision, every sacrifice, every extra hour he worked was for her. Tonight was no different. While she slept peacefully in their small 1-bedroom apartment, Marcus worked tirelessly to ensure she'd have everything she needed. As he approached the executive wing, Marcus heard something unusual, the sound of muffled crying. He paused, listening carefully. The sound was coming from the corner office, the one with Victoria Sterling, CEO, etched in gold letters on the door. Marcus had seen Ms. Sterling a few times during his 2 years working here, always rushing past in expensive suits, phone pressed to her ear, commanding respect from everyone around her. But tonight, something was different. Marcus knocked gently on the partially open door. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" Victoria Sterling looked up from her leather chair, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Even in distress, she commanded presence. Her silver hair perfectly styled, her navy Armani suit impeccable despite her emotional state. At 52, she had built an empire from nothing, but tonight she looked fragile, almost broken. "I'm sorry," she said, quickly wiping her tears. "I didn't realize anyone was still here. Just finishing up the floors, ma'am. I couldn't help but hear. Are you okay?" Victoria studied this man she'd never truly noticed before. Marcus was tall and lean, with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of hard work. His janitor's uniform was clean and pressed, his demeanor respectful, yet genuinely concerned. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus Johnson, ma'am." "Marcus?" she repeated, as if testing how it sounded. "Are you married, Marcus?" The question caught Marcus off guard. "No, ma'am. I'm widowed. I have a daughter, Emma. She's 8. Victoria's expression softened. Something about this man's honesty, his straightforward nature, struck a chord with her. In her world of corporate sharks and social climbers, genuine human connection had become increasingly rare. "Marcus, what I'm about to ask you will sound insane," Victoria began, standing up and walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "But I need your help, and I'm willing to pay you more money than you've probably ever dreamed of." Marcus set down his mop, sensing the gravity of the moment. "I'm listening, ma'am. My granddaughter Lily is dying." Victoria's voice cracked. "She's 6 years old and has acute lymphoblastic leukemia. We found a donor match in Switzerland, but there's a complication. The donor's family has a very specific cultural requirement. They will only donate to a complete family unit. They believe a child needs both parents to heal properly." Marcus remained silent, not understanding where this was going. "My daughter Rebecca is Lily's mother, but she's not stable. Drug addiction, multiple rehab attempts. She can't be trusted with this responsibility. But legally, I can't make medical decisions for Lily unless..." Victoria turned to face Marcus directly. "Unless I'm married." "I don't understand, ma'am. There's an old clause in my late husband's will. If I remarry, I gain full legal guardianship of Lily, overriding Rebecca's parental rights due to her documented unfitness. The donor family is flying in tomorrow for a traditional ceremony. They want to meet Lily's family before proceeding with the donation." Marcus's mind raced. "You want me to marry you?" "For one day. Just long enough to complete the legal process and convince the donor family that Lily has a stable home environment. After the bone marrow transplant is secured, we can annul the marriage immediately." The silence stretched between them. Outside, the city lights twinkled like distant stars, but inside this office, 2 strangers contemplated a decision that would change their lives forever. "Why me?" Marcus finally asked. "You could marry anyone with your resources." Victoria smiled sadly. Everyone in my social circle has an agenda. They see dollar signs, business opportunities, social advancement. But you knocked on my door tonight because you heard someone crying. You don't even know who I really am, do you? Marcus shook his head honestly. I need someone genuine, Marcus. Someone who won't try to manipulate this situation for personal gain. In 2 minutes of conversation, you've shown me more authentic kindness than I've experienced in years. Ma'am, I'm just a janitor. You're asking me to pretend to be something I'm not. No, Victoria said firmly. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are. A good man, a devoted father, someone who understands what it means to love a child unconditionally. That's all the donor family needs to see. Marcus thought of Emma, sleeping peacefully at home, trusting him to always make the right decisions for their family. Now he faced a choice that could change everything, not just for him and his daughter, but for a dying little girl he'd never met. How much are you offering? He asked quietly. $2 million, Victoria replied without hesitation. Cash. Enough to secure Emma's future, pay for her college, buy a house. All for one day of your life. Marcus's legs nearly gave out. $2 million. It was more money than he could earn in several lifetimes of janitorial work. But as he looked at this powerful woman, vulnerable and desperate to save her granddaughter, Marcus realized this wasn't really about money at all. It was about family, sacrifice, and the lengths a person would go to protect a child. Marcus stared at Victoria Sterling for a long moment, processing the magnitude of what she was asking. $2 million. A dying child. A one-day marriage to a woman who could buy and sell his entire world without blinking. I need to think about this, Marcus said finally. Of course, Victoria replied, though the urgency in her voice was unmistakable. But Marcus, I need an answer by 6 a.m. The donor family arrives at noon, and we need time to make this look legitimate. Marcus nodded, his mind spinning. Can I ask about your granddaughter? Lily? Victoria's expression immediately softened, and for the first time that night, Marcus saw genuine warmth in her eyes. She walked to her desk and picked up a small silver frame, handing it to him. The photograph showed a beautiful little girl with curly blonde hair and bright blue eyes, sitting on a hospital bed but smiling radiantly at the camera. She was thin, clearly undergoing treatment, but her spirit shone through. She's been fighting for 8 months, Victoria said quietly. The doctors say without this bone marrow transplant, she has maybe 6 weeks left. She's the most courageous person I've ever known, Marcus. She never complains, never asks why me. She just keeps fighting. Marcus studied the photo, seeing something of his own daughter in Lily's determined smile. Where is she now? St. Mary's Children's Hospital. She's sleeping, but she knows about tomorrow. She thinks. Victoria's voice caught. She thinks Grandma found her a new grandpa who's going to help make her better. The weight of a child's hope settled on Marcus's shoulders. He handed the photo back, but the image remained burned in his memory. What about your daughter? Lily's mother? Victoria's jaw tightened. Rebecca has been in and out of rehab for 2 years. She loves Lily in her own way, but she's not capable of making these kinds of decisions. The stress, the medical procedures, the constant uncertainty, it triggers her addiction every time. Right now, she's at a facility in California. She doesn't even know about the donor family's requirements. Marcus could hear the pain in Victoria's voice, the anguish of a mother watching her own child self-destruct while trying to save her granddaughter. And you've never remarried? In all these years? I built my company from nothing after my husband died, Victoria said. Every relationship since then has been tainted by questions about my money, my power, my influence. I stopped trying to find genuine connection years ago. Until tonight, I didn't think I needed it. Marcus walked to the window, looking out at the city where he'd spent his entire life. Somewhere out there, Emma was dreaming, trusting that her father would always be there to protect her. And somewhere else, a little girl named Lily was fighting for her life, depending on adults to make impossible decisions. Tell me about the ceremony, Marcus said finally. What exactly would I have to do? Victoria's eyes lit up with hope. It's simple, really. We get married at City Hall at 8 a.m. I have connections who can expedite the paperwork. Then we go to the hospital where the donor family will meet us. They're traditional, conservative people who believe strongly in family values. They need to see that Lily has 2 committed adults who will support her through recovery. And after that, once the transplant is scheduled and the legal guardianship is transferred, we can begin annulment proceedings immediately. The whole thing should be over within 48 hours. Marcus turned back to face her. What aren't you telling me, Miss Sterling? Victoria looked surprised. What do you mean? You're one of the most powerful people in the city. You could have solved this problem a dozen different ways. Why are you really asking me to do this? Victoria was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with whether to be fully honest. Finally, she sank into her chair, looking older and more tired than before. Because I'm scared, she admitted. I've spent my whole life controlling everything, every business deal, every relationship, every outcome. But I can't control this. I can't force that little girl's body to heal. I can't make Rebecca into the mother Lily needs. All I can do is create the conditions for Lily to have a fighting chance. She looked up at Marcus with tear-filled eyes. And maybe I need to remember what it feels like to trust someone, to depend on the kindness of another person without contracts or leverage or manipulation. Maybe I need to believe that good people still exist. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. This wasn't just about money or even saving Lily's life. This was about two broken people finding an unexpected moment of human connection in the most unlikely circumstances. I have conditions, Marcus said quietly. Victoria sat up straighter. Name them. First, Emma comes with us. If I'm going to pretend to be married, she needs to understand what's happening. Age appropriately, of course. Agreed. Second, if this somehow goes wrong, if there are legal complications or if your daughter comes back unexpectedly, I want your word that Emma and I won't be dragged into any family drama. You have it. Third, Marcus paused, looking directly into Victoria's eyes. I want to meet Lily before we do this. If I'm going to be her grandfather for a day, I want to look her in the eye and promise her that everything's going to be okay. Victoria's composure finally cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. Yes, of course. Marcus walked over to Victoria's desk and extended his hand. Then I'll do it. I'll marry you tomorrow, Miss Sterling. Victoria stood and shook his hand, but instead of the business handshake he expected, she held on, squeezing gently. Thank you, Marcus. You have no idea what this means. As Marcus prepared to leave, Victoria called out one more time. Marcus? What made you say yes? Really? Marcus paused in the doorway, thinking of Emma sleeping safely at home and of Lily fighting for her life across town. Because sometimes being a father means taking risks to protect children, even children you've never met. At 6:47 a.m., Marcus stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting a tie he hadn't worn since Sarah's funeral. The face staring back at him looked tired but resolved. In the next room, Emma was getting ready for what she believed was take your daughter to work day, a small lie Marcus hoped wouldn't haunt him later. Daddy, why are you wearing a suit? Emma asked, bouncing into the bathroom with her backpack. At 8 years old, she had her mother's curious nature and Marcus's kind eyes. We're going to meet some very important people today, sweetheart. Remember what I told you about being polite and staying close to Daddy? Emma nodded solemnly. Marcus had explained in carefully chosen words that they were going to help a sick little girl and her grandmother. He hadn't mentioned the marriage. That would come later, when he could find the right words. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Car is outside. Ready when you are. Looking out the window, Marcus saw a black Mercedes with tinted windows. The distance between his world and Victoria's had never seemed more apparent, but there was no turning back now. The ride to City Hall was surprisingly comfortable. Victoria sat beside Emma, asking genuine questions about school and friends. She seemed different in the morning light, less commanding, more human. She wore a simple but elegant navy dress and carried a small bouquet of white roses. These are for you, Victoria said, handing Emma a smaller bouquet. Every important ceremony needs flowers. Emma beamed, clearly charmed by this mysterious woman her father was suddenly spending time with. At City Hall, the ceremony was brief and businesslike. Judge Harrison, clearly doing Victoria a favor, performed the minimal legal requirements. Marcus found himself saying, I do to a woman whose middle name he didn't even know, while his daughter watched with confused but trusting eyes. The moment felt surreal, signing papers that made him, temporarily, one of the wealthiest married men in the state, while knowing it was all an elaborate performance to save a child's life. You may kiss the bride, Judge Harrison said with a knowing smile. Victoria and Marcus looked at each other awkwardly before sharing the most polite, businesslike kiss in the history of marriages. Emma giggled, breaking the tension. Now what? Marcus asked as they walked out of the courthouse. Now we go to the hospital, Victoria said. The donor family will be there in 2 hours. But first, She paused, looking nervous for the first time that morning. First, you meet Lily. St. Mary's Children's Hospital was unlike any place Marcus had ever been. The walls were painted in cheerful colors, decorated with cartoon characters and inspirational messages, but underneath the cheerful facade was the unmistakable weight of childhood illness and family desperation. Victoria led them through corridors she clearly knew by heart, stopping at room 412. Through the window, Marcus could see a small figure propped up in bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and get-well cards. "She's awake," Victoria said softly. "Are you ready?" Marcus took Emma's hand and nodded. The moment they entered the room, Lily's face lit up with pure joy. Despite her obvious illness, the pale skin, the thinning hair from chemotherapy, the medical equipment surrounding her bed, her smile was absolutely radiant. "Grandma, you brought them." Lily's voice was weak but filled with excitement. Victoria rushed to Lily's bedside, kissing her forehead gently. "Lily, sweetheart, I want you to meet Marcus. He's going to be your new grandfather. And this is Emma. She's going to be like your big sister." Marcus felt his throat tighten. The casual way Victoria introduced him as grandfather made the reality of what they were doing hit home. This wasn't just paperwork and legal procedures. This was a little girl who was genuinely hoping for a new family member. Emma, with the natural fearlessness of children, immediately approached Lily's bed. "Hi, I'm 8. How old are you?" "I'm 6, Lily replied. "But I'm going to be 7 next month if—" She paused, looking at the adults uncertainly. "You're definitely going to be 7 next month," Marcus said firmly, stepping closer to the bed. "And 8 and 9, and every number after that." Lily studied Marcus with the serious expression children reserve for important moments. "Are you really going to be my grandpa?" Marcus glanced at Victoria, who was watching this interaction with barely contained emotion. He thought about all the reasons he could give for why this was temporary, why he was just helping out, why she shouldn't get too attached. Instead, he sat on the edge of Lily's bed and took her small hand in his larger one. "Lily, I want you to know something very important. Today, and for as long as you need me to be, I'm going to be the best grandfather I can possibly be. That's a promise." Lily's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Really? Really? And you know what grandfathers do?" "What?" "They tell stories, they give hugs, and they never, ever give up on their grandchildren. Especially brave ones like you." For the next hour, the 4 of them sat together in that hospital room, creating the illusion of a family that had somehow found each other. Emma showed Lily drawings from her backpack, Victoria read from one of Lily's favorite books, and Marcus found himself genuinely enjoying the role of grandfather. But underneath the warmth and connection, they all knew that in 1 hour, the donor family would arrive. Everything they were building, this fragile sense of belonging and hope, would be put to the ultimate test. As if reading his thoughts, Victoria's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and looked up at Marcus with an expression of nervous determination. "They're here early," she said quietly. "The Hoffman family just arrived." Marcus squeezed Lily's hand gently. "Are you ready to meet some very special people who are going to help make you all better?" Lily nodded bravely, but Marcus could see the fear in her eyes. In that moment, he realized that this had stopped being about money or legal arrangements. This was about a little girl who needed to believe that adults could keep their promises, that families could form in unexpected ways, and that sometimes miracles came disguised as ordinary people doing extraordinary things. The Hoffman family entered Lily's hospital room with the solemn dignity of people carrying a sacred responsibility. Dr. Klaus Hoffman was a tall, distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and kind but serious eyes. His wife, Maria, was elegant and warm, while their adult son, David, had the same compassionate demeanor as his parents. They had traveled from Switzerland specifically for this meeting, and Marcus could feel the weight of their cultural expectations settling over the room like a heavy blanket. "Mr. and Mrs. Sterling," Dr. Hoffman said formally, extending his hand first to Victoria, then to Marcus. The use of Victoria's last name for both of them felt strange, but Marcus shook hands firmly, hoping his nervousness didn't show. "We are honored to meet you," Maria Hoffman said, her English accented but precise. "And this must be little Lily." Lily, propped up in her hospital bed, managed a shy smile. The presence of so many adults had made her quiet, but she held tightly to a stuffed elephant Victoria had brought her earlier. "And who is this lovely young lady?" David Hoffman asked, noticing Emma standing close to Marcus. "This is Emma, my daughter," Marcus replied. "Lily's new big sister." The Hoffmans exchanged meaningful glances. In their research about Lily's family situation, they had clearly been briefed about the complex circumstances surrounding the little girl's care. Dr. Hoffman pulled up a chair close to Lily's bed. "Little one, do you know why we are here?" Lily nodded solemnly. "You're going to help make me better. Your son has special blood that matches mine." "That's right," Dr. Hoffman smiled gently. "But before we can do that, we need to know that you have people who love you very much. Can you tell me about your family?" This was the moment Marcus had been dreading. Lily looked around the room at the faces of people she barely knew, people who were asking her to perform the complex emotional math of explaining relationships that had been forged in desperation just hours earlier. "This is my grandma Victoria," Lily said confidently, reaching for Victoria's hand. "She visits me every day and brings me books and ice cream when the doctors say it's okay." Victoria squeezed Lily's hand, her eyes glistening with tears. "And this is my new grandpa Marcus," Lily continued, looking at Marcus with complete trust. "He promised to tell me stories and give me hugs and never give up on me." Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion. Hearing this sick little girl claim him as family, even in these artificial circumstances, stirred something profound in his heart. "What kind of stories does Grandpa Marcus tell?" Maria Hoffman asked, clearly testing the authenticity of their relationship. Marcus sat on the edge of Lily's bed, buying himself a moment to think. Then, inspiration struck from the most natural source possible, his experience as a father. "Well, yesterday I told Emma a story about a brave princess who lived in a tall castle," Marcus began, looking directly at Lily. "And today, I think I'll tell Lily about a brave little girl who was stronger than dragons." For the next 20 minutes, Marcus found himself telling an impromptu story about Princess Lily, who lived in a magical kingdom where she had to be very brave to help save all the other children in the land. As he spoke, he watched Lily's face light up with genuine delight, and even Emma leaned in closer to hear how the story would end. The Hoffman family listened intently, but Marcus could see they were observing more than just his storytelling ability. They were watching how Lily responded to him, how naturally Emma interacted with her new sister, and how Victoria looked at this makeshift family with such raw love and hope. Princess Lily's greatest power wasn't magic or strength, Marcus concluded. It was her ability to bring people together, to help them remember that families can be made in the most unexpected ways, and that love is the strongest medicine of all. Dr. Hoffman was quiet for a long moment after the story ended. Then he spoke directly to Marcus. "You are not Lily's biological grandfather." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus felt Victoria tense beside him, and even Emma seemed to sense the shift in the room's energy. "No, sir, I'm not," Marcus replied honestly. "But biology doesn't always determine who family is. I've been Lily's grandfather for exactly 18 hours, and in that time, I've come to care about her as much as I care about my own daughter." "And when Lily recovers from the transplant," Maria Hoffman asked, "what then? Will you still be her grandfather?" This was the question Marcus had been avoiding in his own mind. What happened when the legal necessity ended? When Victoria no longer needed him to maintain guardianship? When this whole elaborate performance was no longer necessary? He looked at Lily, who was watching him with complete trust, and at Emma, who had already started talking about all the things she wanted to show her new sister when she got better. "Mrs. Hoffman," Marcus said finally, "I can't predict what legal arrangements will look like in the future. But I can promise you this, that little girl will always have a place in my family. Whether I'm legally her grandfather or just someone who cares about her, I will be there for her recovery, for her birthdays, for her graduations, and for whatever else she needs." Victoria was staring at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read: surprise, gratitude, and something deeper. David Hoffman stepped forward. "We have seen many families in situations like this. Parents who make promises they cannot keep, relatives who disappear when the medical crisis ends. But we have also learned to recognize genuine commitment." He looked around the room, at Victoria holding Lily's hand, at Emma showing Lily her favorite toy, at Marcus sitting protectively close to both girls. "We believe this child is truly loved," David continued. "We will proceed with the donation." The relief in the room was palpable. Victoria closed her eyes and whispered what might have been a prayer of gratitude. Lily clapped her hands together weakly but joyfully. But as Marcus hugged his new granddaughter, he realized that the Hoffmans' approval was just the beginning. The real test wouldn't be convincing strangers that they were a family. The real test would be figuring out how to be one. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in the same hospital room, but everything had changed. Lily's bone marrow transplant had been successful, and though she still had a long recovery ahead, her doctors were cautiously optimistic. Her cheeks had regained some color, and her smile seemed brighter every day. What hadn't changed was the routine that had somehow developed naturally. Marcus visited every day after his morning shift, bringing Emma with him on weekends. They would read stories, play quiet games, and slowly watch Lily grow stronger. Victoria was there too, of course, but something had shifted in their dynamic. The desperate urgency that had brought them together had transformed into something neither of them had expected: genuine affection and respect. "The annulment papers are ready," Victoria said quietly as they stood outside Lily's room. Emma and Lily were inside, working on a puzzle together while a nurse checked Lily's vital signs. Marcus nodded, though he felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. "Right. We should take care of that." "Marcus," Victoria began, then stopped. After 3 weeks of daily interaction, they had developed an easy friendship, but this conversation felt different. More loaded. "What is it?" "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." Marcus turned to face her fully. "Okay. These past 3 weeks, when you come here every day, when you light up talking to Lily, when you help Emma with her homework in the hospital cafeteria while we wait for test results, are you doing that because you feel obligated? Because of our arrangement?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither of them had been willing to acknowledge. Marcus looked through the window at Emma and Lily, their heads bent together over colorful puzzle pieces. Emma was patiently helping Lily place each piece, celebrating every small success with genuine enthusiasm. "No," he said finally. "I'm not doing it out of obligation." "Then why?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, searching for words to explain something he was only just beginning to understand himself. "Because somewhere in the last 3 weeks, I stopped pretending to be Lily's grandfather and started actually being one. And Emma," he smiled, watching his daughter carefully adjust a pillow behind Lily's back, "Emma has found the sister she always wished she had." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "And what about us, Marcus? What have we become?" The question Marcus had been avoiding was now impossible to ignore. What had started as a business arrangement had evolved into something far more complex and meaningful. "Victoria, I need to be honest about something," Marcus said. "I've been thinking about this for days. What we have, it's not what either of us expected." "No, it's not," she agreed. "I hired a husband for a day, but I found a partner," Marcus finished. "Someone who shares the same priorities, the same values about what family really means." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching their daughters, because that's what Emma and Lily had become to both of them, work together on their puzzle. "I don't want to sign those annulment papers," Victoria said suddenly. Marcus felt his heart skip. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that for the first time in 20 years, I come home to an apartment that feels alive. Emma does her homework at my dining room table, while you cook dinner for all of us. Lily FaceTimes us every night to say goodnight. We've become a family." "Victoria, I know it's crazy," she rushed on. "I know we barely knew each other a month ago. I know you could have any woman you wanted, and I'm too old and too set in my ways and too complicated with a sick granddaughter and a drug-addicted daughter and more money than anyone needs." Marcus stepped closer to her. "Victoria, stop." She looked up at him, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen before. "You're not too anything," Marcus said gently. "You're brilliant and strong, and you've shown more courage in the last month than most people show in a lifetime. You've taught Emma that intelligence and kindness can go together. You've given Lily hope and medical care that saved her life. And you've given me— what have I given you? A reason to believe that love can happen more than once in a lifetime. That families can be built in unexpected ways. That sometimes the best things come disguised as the most complicated situations." Victoria reached for his hands. "So what do we do? How do we make this real?" Marcus smiled, thinking of how far they'd all come from that desperate midnight conversation in her office. "We start over. We date properly. We let the girls get used to the idea gradually. We take our time and do this right. And the annulment? We sign it," Marcus said firmly. "And then, when we're ready, really ready, not because of medical emergencies or legal necessities or any other crisis, we get married again. For real this time." Victoria laughed through her tears. "You want to marry me twice? I want to marry you as many times as it takes for you to believe that this is real, that it's permanent, and that it's based on love, not desperation." Through the hospital room window, They could see Emma helping Lily place the final piece of their puzzle. Both girls cheered quietly, careful not to disturb other patients, and then hugged each other tightly. "Look at them," Victoria whispered. "They've figured it out faster than we have." "Kids usually do," Marcus replied. "They see family where adults see complications." As they watched their daughters celebrate their small victory, Marcus realized that the most important decision had already been made, not by him or Victoria, but by two little girls who had chosen each other as sisters, and by a family that had chosen to form itself around love rather than law. 6 months later, Marcus and Victoria Sterling Johnson were married again, this time in the hospital chapel with Lily as the flower girl and Emma as the maid of honor. Lily was in full remission, her hair growing back in soft curls, her energy returning daily. She stood proudly at the altar, scattering rose petals with the serious concentration of someone who knew exactly how precious and hard-won this moment was. Dr. Hoffman and his family had flown in from Switzerland to attend the ceremony, not as medical facilitators this time, but as friends who had witnessed the birth of an extraordinary family. "You know," Victoria whispered to Marcus as they exchanged rings for the second time, "I never did pay you that $2 million. Marcus smiled, looking out at their small but perfect congregation. Emma and Lily sitting in the front row, Victoria's house staff who had become like extended family, and even some of Marcus's night shift co-workers who had watched this impossible love story unfold. "That's okay," he whispered back. "I got something worth much more." "What's that?" "A family that chose each other." As they kissed, a real kiss this time, filled with love and promise and the certainty of shared tomorrows, Emma and Lily cheered loudly enough to make the hospital staff smile from down the hall. Later, at the small reception in Victoria's penthouse, Marcus found himself standing on the balcony, looking out at the city where his life had changed so completely. Emma and Lily were inside, teaching Victoria's business associates how to play their favorite card game, their laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. "Any regrets?" Victoria asked, joining him outside. Marcus thought about his old life, the lonely night shifts, the constant worry about making ends meet, the weight of raising Emma alone. Then he thought about their new life, the morning chaos of getting two girls ready for school, the family dinners around Victoria's enormous dining table, the way Lily had started calling him Grandpa Marcus, without any prompting from adults. "Just one," Marcus said finally. Victoria's face fell. "What?" Marcus grinned and pulled her closer. "I regret that it took a medical emergency for me to find you. I wish we could have met under normal circumstances." "Normal is overrated," Victoria laughed, leaning into his embrace. "Besides, would you have married a billionaire CEO under normal circumstances?" "Probably not on the first date," Marcus admitted. "But eventually?" "Definitely. Some things are just meant to be." From inside the apartment, they could hear Emma teaching Lily a song she'd learned at school, both girls giggling as they got the words wrong. It was the sound of childhood, of safety, of a family that had found its way home. "Marcus?" Victoria said softly. "Yes. Thank you. For saying yes that night. For taking a chance on us." Marcus kissed her forehead gently. "Thank you for asking the right person." As the sun set over the city, the Sterling Johnson family celebrated not just a wedding, but the miracle of how love can arrive in the most unexpected packages. Sometimes dressed as desperation, sometimes disguised as a business arrangement, but always worth saying yes to. And in her hospital room across town, the night shift janitor found a note tucked behind a framed photo on the supervisor's desk. "Sometimes the most important job isn't cleaning buildings, it's building families. Thank you for showing me the difference. MJ." 1 year later, the Sterling Johnson Foundation was established, providing support for single parents facing medical crises with their children. Marcus served as the program director, using his understanding of working-class struggles to ensure help reached those who needed it most. Emma and Lily were inseparable, sharing a room in the family's new home. Victoria had insisted they needed somewhere that felt like everyone's house, not just mine. The two sisters could often be found reading together, Lily helping Emma with math while Emma helped Lily with art projects. Victoria had learned to cook Marcus's favorite comfort foods, while Marcus had learned to navigate charity galas and board meetings. They had found balance in their differences, strength in their shared values, and joy in the family they had built from hope, desperation, and the courage to say yes when it mattered most. And sometimes, late at night, when Marcus checked on both girls and found them sleeping peacefully in their shared room, He would remember that midnight conversation in a corporate office that had changed all their lives forever. Some marriages are arranged by families, some by circumstances, and some by love at first sight. But the best marriages are arranged by need, built by choice, and sustained by the daily decision to keep choosing each other, no matter how impossible the beginning might have seemed.